Ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome from me. It's a pleasure welcoming all my distinguished speakers. It's Hane and it's Daniel. I'm very much sorry, but Pavel Rytíř got stuck somewhere on the highway, as I've learned, so apologies for not having him today. But first of all, Dana, please, if you could join our panel. Dan is...
Good afternoon.
Very warm welcome. Let me introduce him just for a quick while. Dan is responsible for everything which is smart in the city of Prague. He's one of those people responsible for innovative projects, and we will talk about it really in a little bit more detail. And Hane, if I please could ask you to join me as well. So, we have some 30 minutes according to the timer, which is not much for innovations, but let me start briefly, Hane, with you. You have a truly international background. You are based in Switzerland, you work for CERN, which all of us know here in Czechia. But my first question is, if you could comment on, is it really different when you want to somehow persuade all of the key stakeholders in Switzerland as compared to the rest of the world with new digitization projects? Does it differ somehow?
Does it work? Yes. I think I have first to explain a bit more my background to answer this question, because so now I work at CERN, and before that I was working in a startup in a French company based in Hong Kong, actually, in a SaaS company. So I think the structure of where I was working is also affecting my view, my take on this, for sure. But of course, cultural differences is huge. I think in any case, I always worked in corporate innovation and try to scout for startups in different types of large organizations. And I think, yes, in different cultures, negotiations can be easier and more straightforward, whereas in maybe more intergovernmental organization can be more heavy. And I think at CERN we try to ease that up with this program that we launched. If you've heard my keynote before, it's more about licensing out technologies so that we really fast track the access and really try to collaborate more and more easily also.
Wonderful. I think that there can be some lessons learned also for public sector, because we have a representative of public sector here with us. What obstacles do you see on your way to implement digitization projects for Prague? What are the obstacles?
Well, probably the biggest obstacle is what we might call momentum, and that is well, a municipality normally uses some information systems that come from various decades, various periods, and the city of Prague, even if it now uses and upgrades apps that are for the use of citizens daily and use the most modern technologies, in itself, the offices use 25 or 30 years information systems that have been year by year sort of adjusted so that they still stand up to the, for example, the challenges of cybercrime. But most importantly, they are rigid, what we could say behemoth, that spans the whole structure. And in order to make something completely new, one faces tremendous resistance, not only from those financing such an endeavor, but especially from the hundreds and thousands of users within the administration who prefer something that works to something that might be better, right? And everything that we do and we insist upon when we, do public procurement on new systems that they be open source, that they be accessible to competition, that always is a challenge.
I have a follow-up question because I don't want you to escape from this topic as quickly as you might wish, Adam. But my question is, what about vendor lock-in effect? For those of you who don't know what the vendor lock-in is, that's basically something where you select a preferred bidder and you are forced to stay with that selected bidder for another period of time and then another period of time because you, for example, don't have the source code to the software, and there are also some other obstacles. So is this also one of the key conundrums on the way to implement new, great, smart strategies for the city of Prague?
Most definitely, yes. At the same time, we have to see that the best vendor lock would be worthless if the system was not working. So, in essence, working, right? So we are facing these challenges. Sometimes they are circumvented by the company that owns it and is locked onto it through, I don't know, deploying a network of little companies that sort of are certified to do the work on this piece of software. But in essence, it is the same development team that come from the original company. So it is. It only looks like a proper competition on paper. And indeed, this is a major challenge. Even if we have our, let's say, strategic documents pointing to removing vendor locks one by one, it is only as good as we can push the envelope of the whole. So if a certain software, and there is several that has grown into pretty much every nick of the bureau, of the authority, it is much less possible to remove it as a vendor lock. And what we have to do is essentially find other means to find the vendor lock while it is still in place. For instance, negotiating with the vendor, the producer of the software, that they pass some of their know-how to a city-owned company so that the city-owned company can provide the service and essentially take care of the software instead of just feeding, the vendor or the original creator.
Yeah, thank you for a very open and frank answer. That's very valuable. It's not only about vendor lock-in, it's all about people. And people bring a lot of inspiration. So in developing your program, Hane, which you are introducing throughout your presentation, do you feel lack of enthusiasm, or do you feel lack of capabilities, or do you feel any lack in people that are around responsible for digitization, or is it as smooth as walking on eggshells?
Specifically on digitalization, I think we have to keep in mind that CERN has frontiered it in some way years ago. So it was digitalization comes from CERN, like. It was one of the main players of it at first, but I think it's
inherently.
It's an organization that's very opaque though. So we don't know really what's happening inside, even though the key value of CERN is open source. Everything, all the publications are freely accessible, and everything's out there. We still having a lack of understanding of what it is, what it does, even though we know it's particle collisions and detectors and magnets and etc. But how does this translate into the real world? We know that, for example, some technologies, we don't even know that they come from CERN. The tactile screen from our phones actually comes from CERN because scientists wanted to not touch buttons anymore, but actually create a screen where they could open things up and click many buttons. Things like that. The World Wide Web is the most known, of course, but I think it's hard for people outside to know that CERN is actually working towards really exporting its knowledge. We're a small team at CERN, we're 20-ish people to do that with any type of organization, so we're trying to get the word out there. And internally at CERN, it's also quite difficult, I have to say, because scientists are also working on their own projects, have their own research, and of course, very important research on specific topics, but it's our job to kind of incentivize them to kind of broaden their ideas into what kind of other applications it can be used, and we help them bring new projects in to really build on that.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking of the science community, it's always difficult to see what the new trends are somewhere on the horizon. And sometimes when, for example, a city of Prague, which is actually in the agglomeration, a 3 million city, is just facing a question what to implement and what not to implement in order to spare some money. What is your approach towards the scientific community? Do you discuss something with our renowned scientists? What is their view, or what are the decision-making factors for you when you're selecting which technology to deploy and which technology not to deploy?
As much as, a scientific researcher myself in my previous career, I would like to support research from the fundamental one to applied one. From the position of City of Prague, the life here is different, and we first and foremost have to follow the fulfillment of the public service which the city is supposed to deliver according to the laws and regulations. And that means essentially that we can touch innovation properly only at the stage where where not only the science is already well proven, but the innovation is pretty much at least at the prototypical stage or further. So our approach, and it's been for a few years already, is that through a certain program, through a contract with a company or two of the city itself, we pilot certain ideas. We pilot either services or actually products in and try to test them in certain areas or in collaboration with certain boroughs of Prague, and only when the result is positive, the innovation is passed through to the responsible agents in the city, which usually is the public transportation company or Prague Services, another company of Prague which takes care of the environment and cleanliness and garbage disposal. So this is the approach that we essentially pilot certain ideas, and when they prove that they can be sort of in a routine work day by day be used to make life better in the city, then it is implemented in real life.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to be very itchy, but just for the others in the audience, perhaps some of you who are from Prague might have witnessed the smart benches that could allow your phone to be charged, but ultimately, if I'm not mistaken, there are not so many of them because they were not very successful for the city of Prague. So if there is something what is not so much successful and perhaps could be seen in, I know that I'm raising sometimes very provocative questions, not seen as reliable product or well-received product, how do you tackle this? How do you explain this to your electorate, to people who are here to see the innovation in practice?
Well, the further we go into support of innovation, the more we have to accept that pilots are testing and some tests fail. Some ideas fail in preliminary stages, for example, because the laws of nature don't allow it, or the laws that we have in the country don't allow us, the municipality, to do something. But even when technology is sound, once there is no use for it, then we have to call the pilot off, or pilot being successful in the sense of technology did not fail, but the citizens do not see any improvement of life, and therefore there's no point of, for instance, building more smart benches when we have GSM data services in our pocket, pretty much everybody. Instead of listing the failed projects, which may have been sometimes only too ambitious for their time, like some advanced video analysis of traffic in order to determine some choke points and other things, I should like to, from the other side, point to one innovation which is tremendous, which was actually piloted at the break of two electoral, periods. So when I became a councillor, I got this on a golden plate to sort of announce it, and that was the precise positioning of the vehicles of public transportation, which are, thanks to the development of the not only GSM, but the other satellite constellation, the Copernicus. And this combination had been piloted on Prague trams, and with great results, so that now we have pretty much every vehicle scanned for their location in every moment, and the data, the estimated arrival data on every electrified bus stop that we have here, and even in apps, in mobile apps, starting from Pidlitačka, but also to Google services, that is using this real-time data. And this has been piloted through the city of Prague, essentially saving us, I wouldn't hesitate to say, like 40 million crowns a year if we had to achieve the same thing without this technology before.
What a spirit and what an inspiration, what an invitation to use the public transport here in Prague, ladies and gentlemen. But speaking of all those valuable projects that are helping all of us, I have a question to you, Hanne, because it's definitely not common to have someone from Switzerland, from CERN, here in the city of Prague, in these marvelous venues of the Prague Castle. So I have a question. If you could just share a little bit of your insight, what's on the horizon in terms of interesting CERN projects that could allow all of us benefit from technology and from science? I know that it's all about patents, it's all about confidentiality, but I'm an attorney at law, you can tell me anything.
It's not so much about confidentiality at CERN, actually. It's quite open and accessible. You can go on our website and find everything you need. It's just about understanding it all, maybe. I think what's kind of on the rise for CERN is really, well, first you might have heard of the new project that is currently under study, which is the Future Collider, the FCC project, which is going to be bigger than the LHC, much bigger, almost 100 kilometers, and it's going to allow to create more technologies and basically multiply all the technologies to really immensely. And aside from that, I think projects in knowledge transfer, which is the department where I'm in, we're working a lot on quantum initiatives, I think. And we actually are working on one at the CVC, the CERN Venture Connect program. It's called White Rabbit. It allows synchronization, time synchronization, and communication. So it's a quantum technology at first, but both hardware and software. And I think quantum projects for sure at CERN will be on the rise. And beyond that, I think most of all, it's going to be hardware and developing even stronger laser systems, for example, and really allowing all of this to be implemented on the ground in this new project.
That's truly fascinating, isn't it? So, speaking of quantum technologies, Every time when I hear quantum, I start to be a little bit afraid of having a quantum computer ready to unlock all of my passwords and anything. So hopefully the technology will be focused for the benefit of the society. But I have another follow-up question, because Switzerland has always been known for innovations, and CERN specifically. How do you manage the revenue streams from your, let's say, patents, from your new technology products? How do you manage the money coming from it? Do you invest a lot into some further patents, further technologies, or how do you handle this? It could be also an inspiration for companies like Operator ICT Services and others who also are trying to bring new solutions into practice.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think we work quite differently from any universities or any other national research centers, because we have a special status as an international organization. We're kind of like the UN, so we're financed by member states. So we have 23 member states and some more associate member states, which are basically paying a yearly contribution to CERN, and this is how CERN works, how CERN functions. And in our knowledge transfer team, yes, we indeed license the technologies out to big organizations, and there's a lot of negotiations, so pretty big contracts, but it's not really, we're not looking for profit out of it. It's really, for us, impact is first, so, and that's what the member states are looking for, actually. Member states are actually looking to have numbers, and what does it mean in terms of jobs created or impacts in industry in different countries. So this is what we're really working on right now, is to really monitor this and find indicators that we can prove to the member states. And in terms of licensing, so first, we don't have a lot of patents, because as I said, CERN is open source, so we really try to provide the technology, and most technology are open sourced, actually. But we still license the IP out to industry. And specifically for startups, actually, we don't get a lot of money out of it. It's only 2% of royalties, which actually, for now, doesn't really happen, because they have to hit 1 million francs in revenue. So it's quite far off, and we're not, again, looking for that. It's really to the benefit of them using the technology, because we want the technology to be used in the different industry, and they're very versatile, so we can find many applications.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, that's a very honest answer. Let's not beat about the bush. I have a question which relates to financing. And my question would be, because perhaps some of the people in the audience live here in Prague, and those who don't, they live in their own cities. So how do you tackle a situation when you have the very great idea, you want to digitize transportation system in a very unique way, something super fantastic, but you are in a total shortage of money. So how do you handle that kind of situation? Or is the city of Prague in a position, as we hear from the news, that Prague has in their budget such a huge surplus of money, and Prague has not been investing enough and can be investing enough? So how's the money question?
Well, it's very much happening these days and these years because of the new underground line, the D line of the metro being built and equipped, and in parallel the C line being prepared for essentially driverless operation. So it is a matter of scale, that is to say, at what scale the investment is needed. Sometimes, indeed, it is easier to pinpoint, I don't know, 50 million or 100 million procurement effort than a couple of million, because the infrastructure afterwards, just like the Prague Underground, is so visible, so tangible. It is then experienced by every inhabitant, every visitor to the city. So pretty much any politician and pretty much any bureaucrat, I would say, sees the impact. When there is a similar question to, for instance, removing vendor lock on some economic information system, which, like I mentioned before, has grown into every nook of the offices, that is orders of magnitude more difficult, even if the price tag is smaller, simply because the impact is not visible from the outside. Most voters don't see the difference. We see it when we work with it as the politicians, that next time we do the public procurement, there is a real competition which fulfills better the spirit of the law, and that makes us satisfied, and perhaps the price tag is lowered by the competition, which is essentially also the point. But the public rarely does the accounting and sees this as the proper added value. So when the packaging is something really visible, tangible, just like the new line of public transportation, then it is much less of a problem than open source, than removing vendor lock, than implementing, I don't know, for instance, AI into the operation of the authority.
Yeah, that's true, and especially during a year of elections. We are going to have general elections in October this year, so a lot might change as well. But I have a follow-up questions, because you were talking about so many systems, and I know that your chairman of your party was explaining that the digitization is so slow because we have dozens of thousands of information systems in the public administration, and it's hard to handle. It's hard to interconnect them, it's hard to limit them, because they are legacy systems, pretty old and pretty irreplaceable. Is the situation same for the city of Prague? So does it matter so much that we have so many old systems, and that is the jeopardizing factor for deploying new technologies? Is it such a decisive factor in your view?
Well, yes, there is a big yes, but we have to make a difference between new technologies implementing like the artificial intelligence engines, and new software, because it is the barrier is on the line of replacing software piece for piece. I don't know, for the human resources agenda, for economics, for whatever data that we want to collect and store. But if there is a technology that we somehow pilot a way that it will save us human resources, so that the humans can do something more appropriate rather than routine work, then it is much easier to implement new technology and simply order it to be implemented within the already existing information systems, not those from the 90s. I would not attempt that, but it is quite plausible that the commercial companies themselves come in that are already suppliers of the authority and say, you know what, we have developed this and this module for the system that you're already using. How about you pay more and you get that module? And we negotiate, okay, but why should we pay more when we want the same work done, just paying more for new technology? So then this is the stage for the negotiations, but it is not a problem with the technology, only the effort to implement new technology comes at a cost, and we have to negotiate that cost.
Very well understood. sometimes it's all about dedication and inspiration, and I have a inspirational question to you, Hane, because the city of Prague could get some inspiration for new projects, for example, in the city of Budapest or Berlin or in other cities to see what to just keep up the track. But where do people working for CERN take the inspiration from? Is there any ask from the business community, or is there any ask from the NGOs, or who knows what is going to happen in CERN, and who places the order?
The governments, I think. Well, the member states, they know what's going on for sure. I mean, as I said, the FCC, the Future Collider, is what is going to happen in the next 50 years. And it's going to represent a lot of projects in the region of France and Switzerland. And yeah, I think in terms of inspiration, though, what the scientists, where do scientists get inspiration from? I think from other scientists at CERN, definitely. And yeah, other than that, yeah, I think that's all.
Yeah, that's great, because all of us, I think, want digitization. Why? Because we want to have our lives easier and as easy as possible. And sometimes, perhaps not speaking for all of us, I'm a little bit confused by so many apps Prague offers. There is not one guiding app which would be called Prague app. I would click, download it, and there will be a roadmap to, I don't know, public transport, I don't know, ID or a driving license procedure or whatever else. What about some simplification in digitization? Is it even possible? So many systems, so many projects, so many problems on the way. What about simplification, to make it as simple as possible? Is that the key?
To a degree, yes, but we have to see that there is some minimal amount, minimum number of systems that will have to be in place anyway. For instance, Prague as a municipality does not only, services that are related to the decision-making of the local council, including me and the assembly, which is 64 other people, but also carries through some state guaranteed agenda. One does not normally know it, but the Prague authority, the Prague Hall, is essentially two institutions in one, and one half is following strictly the law that is passed, the work that is passed to them by the ministries, and only has a essentially labor law relationship to the city, and the other half that does the city's agenda itself, on which we make a decision and what we can actually steer. So I should say that for the first half that I mentioned, there is more than 100 agendas that are essentially delivered by the state on the country level, but are passed on to the regional authority and to be delivered to the people. And some of those 100 plus are still passed on to the authorities of the boroughs, of the 57 boroughs that Prague has. And all this complexity, because it is a state-owned, state-provided agenda, needs to have some sort of legal and formal separation from the agenda that we provide as a municipality, that is to say the traffic, the transportation, cleanliness, garbage collection, social services, and so on. So there is definitely some minimal distribution, and I already mentioned the app Pidlitečka, which is actually growing in size, growing in number of agendas implemented, And nowadays it is pretty much reached its technological sort of peak in terms of what it can handle under current technology, and it has to go through a major upgrade for the following few months that will allow it to expand further. The great agenda was parking, the payment for parking lots that was added to it. It simplified life for people who use both cars and public transportation, but it's reaching the limits of the technology by design.
Dana, please give us a public pledge that that does not automatically lead us to changing that card while queuing somewhere at the premises of local transportation authority, and it will be replaced somehow automatically. Please give us that pledge. We don't have time in queuing.
I certainly won't allow you to queue.
Okay, lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, because we have some 3-4 minutes left, and I have to be really precise, because I will be killed by the organizers. So I have the very last question for you. The last speaker, the predecessor speaker, Honza, was talking about non-priorities, about the fact that for digitization, no priorities could be identified because it's just one priority. But on the other way around, is there really one digitization or digitalization priority which you could mention, and a good recipe how to get that priority done and ready? Hane?
I think the whole world is digitalization anyway, so of course you don't have one priority, everything's a priority, but I think enablement, as I think the public sector and the private sector should collaborate, of course, and more than in anything, actually. And I think, yeah, enablement for governments to be able to enable the private sector is really important.
So collaboration, that's the key. Okay. Dana, what are your thoughts?
From my perspective, it is related to your previous question. That is to say, digitization should make life, that is to say, the interaction of a citizen with the authorities simpler. And on the next level, the processing should be also simpler for those working, for the officials in the big authority that work with it. It should be also simpler. And where digitization happens on the old, non-digitized processes, we often see that the efforts are increased, that it requires more money, more people to do, and that is not the way to do it. The right way to do it is essentially doing through process redesign so that the digitization actually simplifies things for both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. Great to hear your thoughts. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to close this panel. And I'm very much looking forward to see you all during the upcoming panel, which would be related to cybersecurity, where you could see myself again. But once again, Hane, Dana, thank you very much for coming. It was very great to see you and great to hear your thoughts. Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much.